Hey everyone, welcome to Blasticap 1. Today we'll be talking about protests in the United States and around the world, and also about wearing a mask out in public. So first I'm going to start with talking about protests and are they really worth it? Um, when you look around the world, there's been protests for as long as you can look back in history when whenever society is not happy with their government or what's going on in their everyday life. And so,
Hey everyone, welcome to Blasticap 1.
so when you look back on this in history, there's very few to no protests that have ever made a government just say, okay, we're going to change our mind and we're going to go with what you want to do. And so, as you look at that, the only way that protests have ever made a difference, whether for the better or for the worse, is when there was actual coup afterwards, where either the people have taken over the government or the military's taken over the government, whichever way it may be, and that's the only way that it's actually changed throughout history. But by doing marches and doing protests, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and you know, letting your voice be heard. Where it gets into where it is a problem in society and among governments and countries is when demonstrators and protesters go out and start burning down businesses or tearing up government property, tearing up state property. And then as you look at it, somebody has to rebuild that. And so as a protester, whether working or not, you still have to pay to get the city or the area rebuilt afterwards, and it's going to come out of your pocket. And so, if you don't look at it at that point of view for the other protesters that you're supporting and you're walking with, and you're holding signs with, and then you find out later that they burnt down a business or tore up a building, you're still paying for that repair, whether you like it or not, whether you did it or not, you're still going to be responsible for that repair. And so that's why a lot of society um, doesn't agree with protest, or they agree with it as long as it's peaceful. Go down the street, go to whatever facility or location you're going to. But when you start deviating from that or having the vandalism or the looters, if you're in a protest and you see people looting a business, there's not much you can do really, because more than likely they're probably armed or whatever. They have a bunch of people, but you can still try. And if the mass majority is peaceful, then you should be able to stop those people from tearing up community businesses or franchise businesses. Yes, everybody says, well, they got millions of dollars or billions of dollars. The latest incident with Wendy's being burnt down. Okay, they have billions of dollars and millions of dollars, but what they fail to realize is that it was owned by a franchisee. It's not owned by Wendy's. It's owned by Wendy's, but Wendy's is getting paid by someone to own that store. And so what you essentially did was just burnt down somebody's uh, franchise, whether they're local or not, and it could put them out of business forever, or maybe it's somebody that's wealthy and they can afford to rebuild another Wendy's somewhere else in another location. Um, but that's not always the case. So if you look at it from that point of view, you know, if you're a protester, you should probably start looking at doing the right thing, not tearing up businesses, not tearing up people's houses, and things like that. You should focus on being peaceful and demonstrating the way that you're supposed to do, because as demonstrated in Portland, you have not, whether it was cooling down or not, that's to be said later on, because who's to say that it was cooling down? They still had protesters. Yeah, there were smaller numbers, but that doesn't really mean anything. Excuse me, sorry about that. Doesn't mean that the protest was dying down. It just meant that less people were showing up for it at that time. And what do they mean by smaller numbers? They mean smaller numbers during the week. Were they out doing a head count, on the weekends when you had more people out there? I think that the governor and the mayor should actually elaborate on what they meant by lower numbers were showing up in Portland. And so, as we talk about the destruction and everything, right now, burning buildings and government buildings, whether it's federal or state, you're going to end up paying for it later on. And it's definitely not helping anybody by letting people do that. And if you're a protester, a peaceful one, then I encourage you to have others help you stop these people that are actually tearing up buildings that the community and the taxpayer dollar is going to actually repair all this stuff, because all it's going to do is end up in higher state taxes, higher federal taxes, and you end up paying for it one way or another. So, tear gassing protesters, shooting rubber bullets at protesters, I don't agree with that at all. I think that's like a cowardly way to keep people back. There's plenty of ways that the federal government and state government can keep protesters back. And all the videos I see, all it is, police or federal agents out, trying to control protesters. Well, there's Jersey barriers available. There's water barriers that are available, which are the short ones. If those don't work, you can use Texas barriers where you can't see anything on the other side. But it costs money. It blocks off the roads. It causes traffic problems for, during the day. But if the city's going to allow it, then, they should reconsider setting out these barriers that, aren't movable unless you hook up a truck to them or a car. You probably ain't going to move them with a car. So you're going to have to have a truck or a crane or something to move these Jersey barriers and water barriers and everything else with. And then the police can stay behind that, or federal agents can stay behind it, and basically set up a barrier on both sides of the road. Hey, you can come up to this barrier, and that's as far as you can go. And, try other means than just shooting bullets or rubber bullets and gas grenades on crowds. So we'll move on. So second part, talk about mask. It's been put out. We have a president that doesn't want to wear a mask. He wore one to the Veterans Hospital in Walter Reed. At least he showed the respect to veterans like myself. I'm retired, 24 years. Of showing the respect to disabled veterans or hospitalized veterans that, he's looking out for their health, even though, anywhere else he's usually not wearing a mask. Look around the world, almost all the world leaders are all wearing masks. They're locking down their countries and making it a requirement that the country wears masks. Why we haven't done that, I don't know. I understand you're trying to leave it up to the governors of the state, and that's not working, obviously, when you have rising cases in California, Florida, Texas, all these hot spots, and it's not getting any better whatsoever. So there needs to be a different plan. And, if the president's not going to do it, then, I mean, why do we have a vice president? Why do we have a House? Why do we have, the Supreme Court? Why do we have the Senate? Is there not a way to pass a bill that requires everyone to wear a mask, for, say, a set amount of months, let's say 3 months or whatever? It's not unconstitutional to make people wear a mask for health concerns. So, and if it is, I don't know why it would be whenever it's a public health issue. And if you look back in history, about 100 years ago, we had the flu epidemic that wiped out millions of people. I mean, it kind of seems like the administration that's in place right now thinks this is just a joke and that it has nothing to do, or that it's not going to compare to the flu epidemic. Well, it's already proved that it's as bad, if not worse, than the flu epidemic 100 years ago. And if it's not controlled, it's just going to get worse. The testing for coronavirus, I mean, is getting put on state governors and senators and local government to provide tests because President Trump doesn't want to provide masks, or doesn't want to provide testing for those that want to come do the testing. So if you're volunteering to come do testing, why would you turn down all these people that want to do testing and say that we don't need it because every time we do testing, the numbers go up? Well, of course they go up because more people are getting coronavirus from not wearing a mask or practicing the social distancing of 6 feet apart. It's evident in every city. I mean, you can watch the news and see that's not happening in public. Just today, I saw I don't know, it was last night and this morning, saw an article on Yahoo talking about a protest where one man was walking around with a AK-47, and a person in a car shot him and said that they pointed a weapon at him when they never did because they were pushing their wife or whatever the deal was. I'm not stating facts. I just briefly read over it. But what got my attention was looking at the picture of it. You see protesters with masks on, and then you see 2 police officers standing there with no mask on at all. So if you're going to require people to wear masks, and especially if you're a governor or a senator, why are you not making police officers wear masks? I mean, that should be part of their uniform, just like in the military or police or anything else, firemen. Everybody has a set required uniform that they're supposed to wear. And so if these police officers are showing up with no mask on, firemen showing up with no police mask, which I haven't seen any pictures of that yet. You don't see hardly any pictures of the military because that's, there hasn't been any really military action or events going on right now. So you don't know really how high the count is in the military. And that's another issue is where are the counts for the military? Why can the president not publish what the numbers are of our United States military that have been affected by COVID-19 and what they're doing to protect them? Because with the military, it's not just one person. There's hundreds of people or even thousands of people in each military unit. And so if one person gets it, it's going to spread like wildfire, just like you're being out on the beach in Florida, California, Texas, wherever you go to hang out on the beach or in the clubs, wherever you look at, it's the same thing. If one person gets it, it's easily spread. And so what are those numbers for military? I'm not seeing any numbers showing what our military count is on COVID-19. And it should be publicized, on what the military is doing for that. Are they wearing masks? I mean, they should be wearing masks. Are they wearing masks also? Um, so the biggest issue I think is when you look at other countries and they're enforcing the mask law, their counts are going down. It's getting under control. Why is the U.S. not following that and trying to bring down the counts? I mean, there has to be a reason behind it, whether it's political. You know, you hear the thing all the time. Oh, it's political because elections are in November. Well, not wearing masks or making masks required because people don't want to wear a mask because it's uncomfortable to wear going out in public is not a good reason to win a re-election or an election period for president or any of these other offices. And so when you're purposely telling people that it's just a joke or it's going to go away or oh, don't worry about it, it's not as bad as it sounds, you're leading the public in false pretense. And you should be standing up and saying, you know, I'm going to be a leader of this situation and I'm going to make everyone in my jurisdiction or everybody that I can wear a mask and I'm going to enforce it. That brings me to my next point about masks. I've been out to numerous places and not only mask wearing but social distancing in some of the communities is just ridiculous. You'll have people walk up and pick something up right beside you, or you're trying to pay for your merchandise from a store, and people will come walking right up behind you and stand shoulder to shoulder with you. And that's not 6 feet distancing, and stores like that should be reported. There's different chains that you can go through in your county, your state, and your city, whatever, to report those types of violations. So I would encourage you to do that. A lot of people think like, well, I'm just gonna go out for a second and I'll stand 6 feet apart from everybody else. Well, there's been a lot of studies that show that the coronavirus actually hangs in the air. So if you walk behind somebody, let's say 6 feet apart, but you just walk right through their breathing area and they have COVID-19, you're more than likely going to get COVID-19 also. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of studies out there. At first it said, oh, you only get it through contact. Now there's like over 600 scientists throughout the world that have done studies on COVID-19 in a room area or a room environment. So imagine like the nursing homes, like they say, or nursing homes, the prisons, and they say, all these inmates or elderly got sick and got COVID-19. Well, what the scientists are finding out is that it actually is an airborne disease and that it hangs in the air. And so when you have it enclosed in a room, everybody that comes in that room could be exposed to COVID-19, whether they show symptoms or not. And so, I didn't bring any material this time because this is kind of just one of the things I was thinking about today as something that should be talked about with everything going on in the world right now. So, next time that you're in an enclosed room, well, perfect example is restaurants. They say, well, you should eat outside. Well, if you eat outside, you have less likelihood of getting COVID-19 than you would in an enclosed restaurant. That's a good example of what I'm talking about on COVID-19 being airborne. If somebody has it, and whether they're 6 feet apart or not, you walk through that, you're going to end up having a good chance of actually getting COVID-19 just by being exposed to what's left in the air. It's really bad, if you're touching things like in the bathrooms or the the handle going into the restaurant. A lot of times, you go in a restaurant, you see the workers inside cleaning, tables and disinfecting rails and things like that. But when's the last time you actually seen somebody outside, you know, a customer goes in or a family goes in and then there's somebody actually there wiping off the handles and disinfecting the handles that you use to go inside that restaurant, is for any business. So when you're going in businesses or restaurants or things of that type, just remember how many, or think about how many people have actually gone in before you and opened that door, or opened that door on the way out, and you just walked in or went out of that door that 50 or 100, 200 people, or it could be all day, it might be 1,000 people, just push that door open or open that door by handle, and you just grabbed a hold of that handle. I mean, do you really know if somebody had COVID-19 and handled that door? You don't. So that's kind of another thing that goes along with wearing masks. If you wear a mask, that's awesome, but make sure and wash your hands frequently, just like I said, and especially when you go in businesses and stuff. First thing you should look for is hand sanitizer, ways to disinfect your hands, and that way, if you put your hand on your face, or wipe your forehead off because it's warm in there or whatever, you're not spreading that around your face and opening yourself up to coronavirus. So I just wanted to do this little bit on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry about the beginning. I didn't realize that I had my mic on mute still. So hopefully this is educational. Make sure, if you're still wondering about the COVID-19 and what you can do to keep yourself safe and ways to avoid getting it, do your research. Pop up Yahoo every day or Google search and just kind of look around at what's going on in the U.S. and around the world, in new cases and where they're popping up at. And then also protest. It's not a good idea to just go hang out at a protest because you want to see what it's like, or you want to go catch the action because you might not ever leave there the way that it's going right now. So, but protect your neighbors, protect yourself, protect your society, and if you're at a protest, people are looting, tearing up businesses, lighting businesses on fire. Do everything you can to have others help you in an effort to stop those people from costing you and them and everybody in the society more money, whether it's on local level or federal level, by letting them burn down or tear up or loot a business in the future. Thank you and have a good day.